afternoon. Thank you for sticking around for the last keynote at InterDrone. I have to say that this is my second year at InterDrone, and I'm very impressed. Like the industry, the conference has changed and improved, and I like what I'm seeing. So, again, my name is Jeffrey Antonelli. I was one of the first drone lawyers, if you will. I launched my drone law practice out of my firm in January 2014. The reason why I got into it was because of my RC airplane experience, like a lot of people. I discovered basically self-stabilizing technology, and I thought, wow, millions of people are going to be able to fly instead of, like me, crash and rebuild, crash and rebuild, and crash and rebuild. So in 2014, everyone knows about Section 333. The media companies were the very first ones. And we filed our first one in 2014 for an engineer who just wanted to fly over a mine. And we tried to get the FAA to exempt him from a pilot license, and, well, it didn't work. Similarly, just to echo some of the frustrations I've been hearing at the conference with Section 333, I filed a Section 333 for my own drone service company back in January 2016, and it never came. But we did get one of the first nighttime approvals. So, like you, I am very excited about the clear path that I think Part 107 is allowing us. So let's talk about it. So Section 333, as many of you know, needed a pilot's license, which I thought was ridiculous. I remember I was out in Decatur, Illinois at a Precision Ag conference, and we were talking to people, including some farmers, and we were just scratching our heads, why do you need a pilot's license to put a Phantom up in the air? We looked around, there's no planes to deconflict, except the crop dusters. Those guys are cowboys. Section 333 had some really burdensome requirements. One was the reporting. The NOTAMs, you had to have, I think the first round of 333s, you had to have 72 hours notice, and then they reduced it to 24 hours. All that's gone. So in Section 333, you're going to have a pilot's license, and guess what? Some of the drones that you're looking at for precision ag are larger, like the Yamaha RMAX. So if you're going to have something that's 55 pounds or more, you're still going to have to go under Section 333. But everything else, under 55 pounds, it's 107. So manned pilot license requirement, gone. Notifications prior to flights in Class G airspace, gone. Here's an example of something that's exactly 55 pounds. Excuse me. You still need a 333. So the first thing I thought I would start off with is, how do you become a 107 pilot? Excuse me. So if you're already an airman, already a Part 61 pilot, there's a number of things you need to do, but it's not very hard. First, you take an online course right on the FAA website. You don't have to go through flight school. You don't have to go through an independent testing organization. You just spend a couple hours on the website. The details are on the website if you want to go there, and eventually they'll send you a certificate in the mail. First-time pilots. So this is when you get to join aviation as a drone pilot. You need to go and find an FAA testing center that's near you, and you take an aeronautical knowledge test. Now, I'm going to tell you, like a lot of people, I wanted to study for the 107 exam myself. Last year, myself and everyone in my law firm, we took private pilot ground school. And I thought, I think only about 10% of this applies to drones. But there was so much confusion in trying to figure out, how much do I need to study for the 107? The FAA, if you may remember, released basically some sample questions. And in that, it would give references to what I call the FAA library. And it was just overwhelming. And so gratefully, just a few weeks ago, the FAA finally released a study guide for the Part 107 test. So if you're thinking of taking the test, this is what I recommend you look at. First of all, take a look at the FAA study guide for Part 107. It's a godsend. Second, take a look at Part 107 itself. You don't have to read the 500 pages that precede the actual rule. Go to the end. That's where the rule is. And then finally, the guidance document called AC 107-2. AC 107-2. All of this is available on the FAA website. In addition to that, from the feedback I'm getting from people who have already taken the test and successfully passed, they mentioned two things that you're going to have to concentrate on: weather and aeronautical charts. And I'm going to tell you, that's the challenge for me, aeronautical charts. So let's look at some sample test questions. According to 14 CFR Part 107, the remote piloting command of a small unmanned aircraft planning to operate within Class C airspace. Is it A, use a visual observer, B, required to file a flight plan, C, required to receive ATC authorization? ATC is air traffic control. The answer? C. Operation in certain airspace. In Class G, you're basically good to go during daylight conditions, and you don't have to file paperwork. But everything else, all other classes of airspace, you're going to have to coordinate with ATC. There's a newly released guidance document that's provided for ATC personnel. It's effective in October. I just read it the other day. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's on the website, and I think it's something that, as you study for your 107 test, you're going to want to take a look at. Does anybody not know what's on the right? It's an aeronautical sectional chart. This is the toughest thing for me. There is so much information condensed in these aeronautical sectional charts. In the past, when I had issues with clients coming to me and saying, can I fly here? And I would look at the aeronautical chart, and I thought, I'm going to have to call my pilot. She flies for American Airlines, and she can figure it out. So here's the test question. You've been hired by a farmer to use your small UA or UAS to inspect his crops. The area that you are to survey is in the Devil's Lake West MOA, Military Operations Area, east of Area 2. How would you find out if the MOA is active? You don't want to have a problem with the military, right? Do you A, refer to the legend for special use airspace phone numbers? B, look at the information that's available in the small UAS database? Or C, go to the Military Operations Directory? The answer, refer to the legend for special use airspace phone number. So if you don't want to have an incident that's going to be reported in the national news and have to talk to all of the alphabet soup agencies, this is an example of why you really need to know your aeronautical sectional charts. Here's another test question. How would a remote pick check NOTAMs, or notice to airmen, as noted in the caution box regarding the unmarked balloon? B, by using the FAA's before you fly application. B, by contacting the FAA district office. Or C, obtain a briefing via an online source such as 1-800-WXBrief.com. Obtain a briefing via the online source, 1-800-WXBrief.com. I can tell you, I have no idea yet what that is. I will be studying for the 107 exam now that we have some time. I had just enough time, I thought, to take a look at the knowledge questions that I needed to study, but between a baby, operating a law firm, and getting ready for several conferences, it's tough, and I'm sure time management is tough for you guys too. All right, aircraft registration. Finally, it's easier. So in the past, if you had a Section 333, no matter what you have, a little Phantom, an Inspire, something like a Cinestar, you had to go through the old paperwork route of something called an N number. Go online. If it's under 55 pounds, it's $5. It's very easy. Now let's talk about the sexy part of 107, the waivers. That's what makes the news, and that's what's going to make it really cool and interesting and valuable for the marketplace. So the basic rules of Part 107, once you have your airman certificate, is you can fly in Class G airspace, has to be during the day, has to be within line of sight, which is a little tough for large tracts of farmland. You have to fly under 400 feet. I already said you have to fly it during the day. You have to keep it below 100 miles per hour, which I don't know why you would fly anything 100 miles an hour for ag. And you have to give way to any manned aircraft, including the crop dusters. You must not fly over people. This is going to be a significant difference I'm going to talk to you about soon. And then finally, you must not fly from a moving vehicle. Part 107 has this little crinkle that's a little bit of an issue. If you had, for example, closed set operations under Section 333, you could fly not only over the flight crew, that means the pick and the visual observer, but the subject matter that you were filming. Well, under Part 107, what if you want to film your employees, or let's say you're in construction, you want to film the operations, you're not allowed to do that because they're not part of the flight crew. So if you want to get around any of these restrictions, you apply to the FAA for what's called a Part 107 waiver or certificate of waiver. So Part 107s came out, the Part 107 waivers came out the very first day Part 107 was effective, August 29th. And there were a number of companies that made news, like CNN for flights over people, Precision Hawk and BNSF for flights beyond line of sight, and then a number of companies, including 4 of our clients, for nighttime operations. How did they get this permission already on the very first day? Was it crony capitalism? No. My clients received their certificate of waiver under Part 107 for nighttime operations because we filed for Section 333s, including nighttime operations, many months ago. So the example I gave earlier of my own company, drone service company, that we filed a Section 333 in January that we never got the approval for. On August 29th, we were surprised, oh great, we got nighttime approval. So here's the question, and a lot of questions remain, and we're looking for further guidance from the FAA. So if the FAA is here, we're looking for guidance. And the question is, we know how to get a nighttime waiver, for example, from Section 333. We know it because we did it and then we received it. But is it going to be any different under the 107 waiver? And the reason this is important is a couple. First of all the waivers that were already granted were in the name of the company, and they specify a contact person. So, just like the Section 333, it went to Precision Hawk, or it went to BNSF, or it went to CNN. But the question is, will the waivers be applicable to a particular pilot, like the certification, or will it be treated like Section 333 to an organization? We don't know. Some of the shortcomings with Part 107. I already mentioned the first one. You cannot fly over human beings that are not part of the flight crew. So not part of the operation, not the production crew, not your assistant, not scouts over a field. You can't do it unless you have a waiver. I already mentioned about the problems with finding study guide materials. I think that's been largely solved by the release of the 107 study guide by the FAA, and we're very thankful for that. And then some lack of guidance about these 107 waivers. So the 107 waivers, if you're interested, and I expect many of you here, if you were here for the Robert Blair's presentation, Precision Ag, you want beyond line of sight because you have a lot of acreage to cover. There's a benefit to doing this with drones versus manned aviation in terms of cost. But if you have to, set up and fly a couple acres and then, switch the batteries and move the truck and then go to the next several acres and so on and so forth, that's not really going to work very well. So again, how do you get this waiver? I have to tell you that the FAA basically has only given us general guidance. So basically they say you have to present a concept of operations of how you're going to mitigate the risk that's in proportion to the risk that you present. Okay, well, that doesn't really tell us very much. We need particularized guidance from the FAA. So rather than waiting for someone who happens to get lucky and gets approval and then everybody copies from them, we're hoping the FAA will give particularized guidance because it doesn't seem to exist right now. So going on to what we hope for the future with the FAA and drones. First is we hope under 107 that the FAA is going to start really clamping down on what I call the really rogue cowboy operators. Like a lot of regulated industries, we hope they don't nitpick people. And I think with their new policy of compliance rather than enforcement, I think they're just going to go after the really bad folks that make it hard for all of us. We hope that's the case because it looks bad for everybody. We're also looking to push the envelope for riskier operations, including drones that weigh more than 55 pounds, like the Yamaha RMAX, and operations beyond radio signal. That means true autonomous flights. So if you have a very large farm, for example, or you have utility inspections, pipelines, coastal surveys, and the like, you want it to be able to go fly like a robot and go all the way down and get the job done without having to be constricted to a mile or 3 miles or 5 miles. Quickly, here's some pictures of the people that we're with, and if you have any questions, give us a call, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you very much.